Chief, is this a show of force? Is that what you're doing?
I'm here for money.
Suzanne just raised you a bunch of money. You coming back?
And we're good to go, Mayor.
Good evening. Welcome to the City of Sugarland City Council meeting for Tuesday, September the 21st. A little bit about our agenda tonight. In a minute, Stuart Jacobson is going to do the invocation. That'll be followed by the Pledge of Allegiance to the national flag. After that, we're going to have 3 recognitions. I'll come down off the dais. We'll do the 3 recognitions down here in front, and then we'll proceed to the normal agenda. Stuart?
Thank you, Mayor. As we gather here today, we pray that we are ever mindful of opportunities to render our services to citizens and to our community, keeping in mind always the enduring values of life, exerting our efforts in those areas and on those things upon which future generations can build with confidence. We are humbled by the community's loss of a man who served as a symbol of goodness, Officer Bill Jeffrey, and his ultimate sacrifice in service of peace and protection. Let his life lesson not be lost on us tonight, that we may be challenged to give our best as we perform our duties on City Council. Please stand with me and for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome. We've got a special recognition tonight. It's for the fit and kick. This math's not going to work for me. Fit and kick Taekwondo. And I'm going to ask Mr. Raed Alfalit and Miss Elisa Alfalit if they'd come down, please. A little bit before I give the mic over, I first met Raed and Elisa almost 6 years ago at a competition that they invited me to. And I can tell you what impressed me most was how patient they were with the kids, but it was how, I guess it was about an hour and a half, and watched them go through their routines, and they worked them pretty hard. But you know, what I learned from that experience in watching them was they love the kids and the kids love them. And some of them I realize are not kids anymore. But still, it was the patience, it was the understanding, it was all those things. And we've got a special recognition for I'll call them the kids. We've got a special recognition for the kids because they participated in a tournament and they did really, really well. So I'm going to now let Elisa introduce those kids.
Thank you, sir. First, I want to thank Mayor Zimmerman and the council for having us here. It really means a lot, especially with COVID and tournaments being odd these days. I also need to thank Grandmaster Van Bin, the ITF USA president, the head of the board who puts everything together, Grandmaster Fred Ackard, who basically pours his heart and his soul all the way from Colorado across the nation to make sure that Taekwondo is taught the way General Choi wanted it to be. I need to thank my students, and I need to thank their parents for all the hard work and support. And then I also need to thank, all of us over here need to thank General Choi for creating Taekwondo. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here now at all. Mr. Rod has put a video together that we'd like to share. Mr. Mayor, I think these students would really like to have their medals, so it would be an honor if you'd help us with that, sir. Thank you. Okay. First, Mr. Mutib, gold. Miguel Diaz, silver. Angelique Gutierrez, gold. Praveen Kotapalli, silver. Sanya Gupta, silver. Ishika Rachakanda, gold. Silmi Musin, gold. Hamza Syed, bronze. Rayhan Umarhan, gold. Sai Koka, bronze. Sana Aziza, silver. Mohini Goswami, bronze. Logan Choi, gold. Andrew Huang, bronze. Logan, why don't you practice? Krish Laktawala, gold. Ayansh Manot, silver. Rima Al-Falit, gold. Hamza Al-Falit, gold. Ali Gergen, silver. All right. Safa Syed, gold. Iman Syed, silver. Jamil Chagani, gold. Hamza Siddiqui, gold. Good. I have a few students that are viewing this through Zoom right now. I want to recognize Nicole McCall. She received a gold medal. Anila Malik, she received silver. And Erin Valdez, who received gold.
Councilman, if you come down, I want students, if I can get you to step this way, please.
Take 2 steps forward.
Councilman, come down right here behind you. Right here.
Can you guys on the side squeeze them that way just a little bit?
This way.
Yeah.
Hamza, scoot back, buddy, right next to you.
All right. Here, we're looking here, ready, 1, 2, 3. We're gonna do one more round. 1, 2, 3. Good. Gorgeous.
Good work. Thank you.
Oh, I got it. Sorry. The proclamation. In all the excitement, I forgot about the proclamation. a certificate of recognition presented to Fit and Kick, 2021 Taekwondo School National Champion. This certificate of recognition is presented to the students of Fit and Quit Taekwondo from June 17th through June 23rd. 26 Taekwondo color belts from Fit and Kick participated in the ITF USA National Tournament. All of the Fit and Kick students medaled in their specific categories. The collective medal count totaled 4 bronze medals, 8 silver medals, and 14 gold medals. Many of the competitors had trained virtually for 15 months on Zoom, not seeing an instructor in person until the day of the tournament. Each student who participated has exemplified the Taekwondo tenet of perseverance in the dedication to their art. And their achievement is proof that if a student really wants to learn, a teacher will figure out how to teach them, no matter the circumstances. And it's presented by myself and the City Council today. Congratulations, and thank you all. Our second recognition is for the American Heart Association 2021 Mission Lifeline EMS Award. And for this, I'm going to ask Chief Boker and Battalion Chief King if they'd come down and introduce it for us.
Thank you, sir. I've invited a few of my friends to come down with me. And so it's always good to come and share successes with the city and city council. I'm going to ask Chief King to introduce the award, and then I'll close it up for us.
Good evening. This award is the Silver Plus recognition from American Heart Association. It identifies that Sugarland Fire EMS met the standards set to improve patient outcomes for patients having acute heart attacks. Silver Plus is the highest level we could achieve based on this being our first application process. So we have achieved the highest that we could for our first application.
Congratulations.
And so I'll tell you, we don't do what we do for awards. We do it because it makes a difference in our community. And this is what happens when you have a council that supports a department and a community that supports public safety and first responders that are dedicated and professional in what they do. The award will hang proudly in our hallways, but the real award is there's people in our community that are spending more days with family because these guys saved their life. So the system's working for us.
Congratulations and thank you for your dedication, not only to our city, but to the residents that are here. Mike, if you and council could come down, we'll get a picture. I can get y'all to step up. Why don't the ladies come in front? Come in front. Oh, first, something else. Really, Mike?
Okay, ready? 1, 2, and 3.
Thank you. Congratulations. Last but not least, our final recognition is the Government Finance Officers Association Budget Award recognition. And I'm going to ask Scott Butler, our Director of Budget and Strategy, to come down and introduce the topic for us. Scott?
Thank you, sir. So this is the Distinguished Budget Award that's provided by the GFOA. It's the only award that's available for reporting in terms of budget, and it demonstrates a commitment in terms of transparency and overall easiness of presentation for the community to be able to follow everything we do from a budgeting perspective. Sugarland has now been recognized for this award for 25 years. And I would love to say that I had anything to do with that. And even though I told the mayor and Councilmember Jacobson in my first meeting back in May that I was going to claim, take credit for it, I cannot do that because this year in particular represents a lot of challenges because of the ongoing pandemic. Everything that was done in terms of reporting on the budget was done remotely. There was no way for us to be able to do that together in person, and it's challenging. But and so it recognizes the dedication of staff in terms of financial reporting, and so we're excited to achieve this award. And now 26 is on me. So.
Jennifer, if you and your team can come down, please. I'll let you introduce them.
So we have, I'm Jennifer Brown, I'm Director of Finance, and we have Sylvia Chiapponi and Justin Mejorado, and then Ali Sals is another budget analyst. She couldn't be here with us this evening, and then Rosita Bouchon is our finance manager, and she's actually on vacation this week, so you get the three of us. But proud of the team. This was, as Scott said, this was a particularly challenging from start to finish. This budget was done entirely remotely. All of our budget workshops were done remotely, and our adoption, and we're very proud that we were able to achieve it.
What makes it a little bit more special, not only is this one of the fundamental tenets of the city of Sugarland, that being financial stability and transparency, but it was done during a pandemic when most people were unable to physically be in the office. And this team exhibited what we all hope to be, which is we're just going to get her done. Well, they got her done, and we got the award again. So thank you all for your dedication, and congratulations. Council, if everybody come down. Scott wants to. Come on, Mayor. You're part of the team.
We actually did,
You keep hiding around.
One, two, and three. We're just. Thanks, y'all. We're easy.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank y'all. Congratulations.
Bye, everybody.
Taekwondo students, everyone face the council to here. Come here. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Right, he runs a tight ship. That's impressive.
He's fixed it already.
Of course.
Move on. Item number 2, public comment for those items that are not a public hearing. So if anybody would like to comment about any of the agenda items that is not a public hearing, you're invited to do so at this time. Anyone? Thomas, we have anybody signed up?
We have no one signed up in advance, Mr. Mayor.
Let's move to item number 3, the consent agenda. Everything on the consent agenda is going to be taken as one motion unless we have a council member that wants to pull an item, at which time we'll take all the other items as one motion, and then we'll return to that item for a brief presentation. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Got a motion by Lane, I've got a second by Kermali. You vote at this time, please. And it's a 7-0 vote. Thank you, council members. Item number 4, public hearings. 4A, public hearing, receiving here all persons desiring to be heard on proposed amendments to Chapter 2, Article 4, Section 2192, accessory structures, in Chapter 10, Section 10.3, definitions, letter P of the Sugarland Development Code. I'll go ahead and read the first consideration. Consideration of an action on City of Sugarland Ordinance Number 2247, ordinance of the City Council of the City of Sugarland, Texas, amending the Sugarland Development Code to allow for administrative approval of the undisclosed patio covers between primary and accessory structures by amending Chapter 2, Section 2192, and Chapter 10, Section 10.3, repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict hereof, and providing an effective date. And we have with us Ms. Laura Waller. Laura.
Yes, so I'm very excited to bring this to y'all this evening. A little bit of background on this. So the whole purpose of bringing this forward is to help assist in both citizens getting patio covers, as well as some employee workload taking cases before the Zoning Board of Adjustment. As we'll go through here in the background, this is city initiated to modify regulations that will allow patio covers or unenclosed additions, so where there's a cover but no walls, between a primary and accessory structure. So that's a house and a garage. Currently, unless there's an especially deep lot or there's a large easement at the rear of a lot, most homes that want to add a patio cover to the back of their house do have to get a special exception and go through a public hearing process, as well as a zoning board of adjustments review. That tends to go from about 3 to 4 weeks of administrative approval timeline to sometimes 3 to 4 months, depending on exactly when they realize they need a special exception and when that timing falls to meet all of the public hearing notification requirements by the state. So this amendment does allow for homes built in city to add patio covers, as well as homes that were annexed in. Currently, the special exception process is only available for homes built outside and then annexed. So this amendment does allow for patio covers for any home, not just those that would meet the special exception criteria. This does provide better customer service to the city, both in time and cost savings, for allowing administrative approval, again, rather than zoning board of adjustment approval. And this does apply only to open, unenclosed additions, not enclosed rooms. So this would be strictly for patio covers, not any type of sunroom or wall addition. So just some trends we have noticed since the first special exceptions we have records of were in 2006. So between 2006 and 2015, there were totally 101 cases, and only about 20% of them were this patio cover garage connection. As of just so far in fiscal year 2021, there were 37 cases total, and 24 of them, or 65%, were this patio cover garage relationship. So that is a significant increase in the percent of what we're seeing as far as patio covers go. And these are all connected to the rear of the house, and so it's at the back of the house and the front of the garage. So it's not actually behind the garage or in the setback at all. It's creating that new connection between the house and the garage that we're talking about. And again, every special exception case for a patio cover addition that I've been describing has been approved since 2006. So there has never been one denied. So that's why staff is suggesting we move forward with this, because it's fairly So I think it skipped a slide. No, it didn't. Okay. So this is the summary of changes. This is what, on the left side, you'll see exactly what the code will read after the changes are implemented. So we are changing a couple of things. There is right now, a 10-foot separation minimum. We are suggesting that be moved down to 5 feet to better align with International Building Code. Right now, if it's any closer than 5 feet, there has to be some extra firewalling and other steps taken, and so we do believe that 5 feet is fairly appropriate for that separation. It also removes the maximum breezeway width, so that's the allowance for patio covers. Right now, the only way a garage can be connected to a house and still be considered detached is a 6-foot wide maximum breezeway. That's it. And so this does allow for, it takes away that width and kind of replaces it with a height maximum. So we did add that height maximum to make sure that we're still keeping in line with keeping the bulk away from the edges of the lot. So we want to make sure that anything that's higher than 2 stories is still getting special zoning board of approval, or this is not a 2-story addition. It's meeting all of these regulations. So we did take this before P&Z a couple months ago, and they requested just some specific definitions of both patio cover and unenclosed, because we are using those terms fairly strictly here. So we added the unenclosed structure definition to the section itself to make sure there were no unintended consequences for commercial areas, that it would just be residential that this is applying to. So in section 2-192, in addition to the new rules, there is also the added definition that an unenclosed structure is one that is walled along less than 50% of the perimeter. So there is some exception for nooks and crannies where there might be a wall here or a wall there, but at least 50% of the perimeter does not have a wall. And then we added the definition of patio cover to the formal definitions chapter in section 10-3, that it is a structure with a solid roof that is not enclosed and is not climate controlled. So a couple of examples for you. These 2 examples right now would require a special exception. The structure is being added and it is within 10 feet of that garage, and the garage is within 15 feet of the rear setback, so now it has to meet all of the setbacks because it's considered primary structure instead of accessory. This allowance for this connection means that the garage can stay an accessory structure, doesn't have to go anywhere, and the patio cover can also be allowed as part of the primary structure, but it's allowed between and is not creating a new connection. The same thing on this side, because the patio cover itself is in between the house and the garage is still considered accessory under the new rules and would not have to go through a special exception. So a couple examples of what would still need approval is a connection that itself is in the setback. So because this a patio cover addition to the side of the garage is itself in the 15-foot setback, it would still need the zoning board approval. The same thing here. This is actually not a patio cover garage relationship at all. This is an addition to the rear of the house itself. So because it's on the rear of the house, it is the primary structure that is within 15 feet, so it would still have to go forward to the zoning board for formal approval. So a recap, we did hold that public hearing in July, and there were no speakers present. We have received no inquiries since that meeting or before that meeting. We did move forward with the requested edits of adding the definitions, and so consideration and action were held August 10th, and the commission did unanimously pass the recommendation of approval to mayor and city council. So your points for consideration. The amendment does align with the comprehensive plan and land use plan by allowing property owners to reinvest in their home and add value as shaded space in that backyard, a more private setting for outdoor space. This does only apply to unenclosed structures between the home and the accessory structure. This would not allow for any structures that are themselves in the setback or any enclosed structures. This does enhance customer service through time and cost savings. Right now, I believe the application for a special exception is a little over $600, so it is significant savings in that. And again, the time savings can be anywhere, sometimes 3 to 4 months to maybe 3 weeks. This would not affect any other accessory structure regulations, though. It's just patio covers between the house and the garage. Homeowners would still have the option for a special exception for larger or enclosed structures, and the definitions that were added per the Planning and Zoning Commission direction. So the next steps are to host the public hearing. We did have the notification posted in the newspaper and online. The form was made available for comments, however, we have not received any. Staff is not aware of any opposition to this, and we do anticipate the second reading of the ordinance at your next meeting in October. So staff and the P&Z Commission do recommend approval of the proposed changes in ordinance number 2247, and we are happy to answer any questions after the public hearing.
Thank you, Laura. At this time, we're going to open the public hearing and ask anyone in the audience that wants to comment on this particular item, if they come to the podium, name, address, and then you'll be given 3 minutes. Anyone? Second call. We're going to go ahead and close the public hearing. We're going to move on to the consideration and action. Council members, any questions, or can I have a motion and a second?
Motion.
Go ahead. Go ahead, William.
Just to clarify, you're making this a lot easier for our citizens, is that correct? That's what it sounds like.
Yes.
Less red tape, less delays. This is a good thing, it sounds like.
Yes.
And they would still, if there are regulations within their HOA, they would still go through their processes there. This is just streamlining things for everybody.
Correct.
Awesome, thank you.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Got a motion by McCutcheon, second by Kermally. You'll vote at this time, please. And it passes unanimously 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, council members. Item number 5, budget. 5A, first and final consideration. Consideration of an action on City of Sugarland ordinance number 2245, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Sugarland, Texas, amending the fiscal year 2020-2021 budget for the City of Sugarland, Texas, to provide that the revised budget address funds relating to certain capital and operating budget matters, and that this amendment be adopted as the budgeted amount for those funds. And we have Scott Butler, our Director of Budget and Strategy. Scott.
Good evening, Council. Up here to take more credit. So first, we're going to talk about the budget amendment for FY21 budget to projections. So the budget is adopted through ordinance each year, and then of course throughout the year there are changes that take place, and those are brought to council as amendments that are considered and action taken by council. And then as kind of a final process, those amendments are collected together, and then we conduct this ordinance to amend the budget to projections to include all those amendments. The previous budget amendment for FY21 was the FY20 carryover ordinance number 2220, considered on January 19th of this year. Okay, and then as far as the objectives, there's 3. First is to capture the additional revenues that the city has received and to recognize any savings. And then it allows us to create a more accurate picture of what our year-end position will be for the current fiscal year. And then the final thing is to formally appropriate the budget amendments that have been previously approved by council over the year. In terms of impacts on the revenue side, these are some things that were tracked throughout this fiscal year, and that they continue to be looked at as we work towards recovery. And so there are impacts to various revenue sources, and we've spent some time talking about the impacts to those. Those are things that we continue to monitor as we progress into FY22. In terms of the guidance that we follow financial management policies, and they provide for the city manager to respond to revenue declines. Our focus is to continue to implement FY21 strategies that will reduce expenditures. Some of the things that we avoided during FY21 include position elimination, and that was achieved by a hiring freeze, as well as the FY21 one-time merit offset to avoid any recurring expenditures related to merit increase. We maintained the FY21 operational budget cuts with some limited restoration. We were holding on new initiatives and programs, and then some other freezes related to traveling and training expenditures. I'm going to take some time to go through at a high level and review several of the major funds. First, on the general fund side, we've talked about how sales tax revenues have shown some recovery, and so that's reflected there. The projected FY21 ending fund balance is $35.81 million. And then on the expenditure side, there's a reduction of $2 million. That's funding that's going to drop to the bottom line and be available for some of the one-time expenditures that have been approved or that are proposed for FY22. On the debt service side, this fund captures the expenditures and revenues related to debt service for the city's debt financing. So basically, the revenues and expenditures associated with that, the ending fund balance is projected to be $6.15 million. On the utility fund, the major changes here is related again to both bond proceeds and then expenditures related to debt. And then we have seen some decline in revenues on the utility side. One of the things that Brian Butcher taught me when I first got here was when it rains a lot, we don't sell as much water. And so obviously we've dealt with several months of significant rainfall that have impacted the revenues. And so, however, the ending fund balance continues to be above policy. On the airport side, we had some reductions in revenues due to the issues with the pandemic as well as the winter storm. And then we've had some additional expenditures related to debt service. The ending fund balance projection for FY21 is at $2.9 million, just a slight reduction from where it was at budget adoption. This slide just shows the summary of those major funds that I just discussed. One fund that we continue to monitor, the tourism fund, we've been working with economic development staff. Elizabeth and her group have put a lot of effort into reducing the expenditures associated with that and the decline in the hotel occupancy tax revenue. But with that, the projected ending fund balance is $655,000. This slide is a summary of the capital project amendments that have taken place during the year. I can certainly go through those, but those are projections. Those are amendments that have been brought to council throughout the year. So if there's any questions, otherwise I'll. So the staff recommendation is approval of the first and final reading for Ordinance 2245, amending the fiscal year 21 budget to projections. Any questions?
Thanks, Scott. Stuart?
Thank you, Mayor. Scott, on the debt service fund budget, I see that we're a little bit over on expenses than projection. How is it that, I thought that when we go into the year, we know pretty much exactly what our debt service is going to be.
I may rely on Jennifer Brown to provide some additional insight to debt service, but I believe it's related to bond proceeds. So
we did a refunding during the year, and so the expenditures are being captured in the projections. They were not in the amended budget that was shown. I'm looking at the income statement in the actual fiscal year 22 budget. So we are over on expenditures because of the bond proceeds and the payment to the escrow agent.
I see. So it wasn't debt service, it was the cost of refinancing.
It was the refunding, yeah. So,
Okay.
So when we do a refunding for tax-backed debt, the only place we have to recognize both the revenues and the expenses is within the debt service fund.
Okay, thanks, appreciate it.
Anyone else?
Well, I move to approve.
Okay, I've got a motion by Jacobson. Do I have a second? Second. Got a second by Watley. Your vote this time, please. And it passes 7-0. Thank you, council members. Item number B, first and final consideration of an action on City of Sugarland Ordinance number 2249, an ordinance of the City of Sugarland, the City Council of the City of Sugarland adopting the annual budget for the City of Sugarland, Texas for the fiscal year beginning October 1, 2021 and ending September 30, 2022, appropriating the sums as set forth therein, adopting the Capital Improvements Program 2022 through 2026, and adopting a compensation plan. And Scott's going to present that. And council, this is what we prepare for all year long. Scott?
Thank you. First of all, I do want to take a minute and just say thank you to both from the council and on the staff side for the efforts associated with this. It is a massive undertaking, and I've gained a great appreciation for that as far as the detail and the time that we take as a city in order to make sure that we do this right. And I do want to say, for Jennifer May, Jennifer Brown, for Rosita and Justin, Sylvia and Allie, they have done a tremendous job with this. And in addition to having to put this together, they also had to try to get me up to speed. And so I just really appreciate it. And there's a lot of hard work that went into this. And so it's a great effort and it's a great thing for the city as well. So with that, so I'll provide you with a summary of the FY22 budget. So our focus and the focus of the city is to be responsible, conservative, and resilient. The mayor talked about during the recognitions about the importance of financial stability. We take a lot of pride in making sure that we do things in a stable fashion, not only for today but for long term. And we continue to build on the FY21 strategies, and then there is ongoing risk, and we recognize that. And so we continue to monitor those with strategies to offset that risk. We're looking to turn interruption into opportunities, or disruption into opportunities. And then we want to maximize innovation and strategic planning in all of our efforts to be better than before. As far as the priorities for FY22, we continue to focus on the priorities that were identified by the community during 2020. Those include infrastructure, drainage and sidewalks, mobility and traffic safety, special events, public safety training, equipment and facilities, as well as citizen engagement efforts. We also have a phased plan for restoration of funding levels for the priority services that are important to the community. In terms of capital projects for FY22, this will continue year 2 of the GEO bond program implementation. The priority for this year is on drainage projects and public safety. And if you recall, originally the GEO bond program was designed to be a 3-year program, but recognizing some of the financial impacts related to the pandemic, that timeline was revised to 5 years. There continues to be an emphasis in the capital program centered around utility projects that further the implementation of the citizen-led integrated water resource plan. So in terms of the budget for fiscal year 2022, the city manager filed the proposed budget on July 20th. That budget sits at just over $300 million in total for FY22. And then with a $59 million capital improvement budget and then $240 for the operating budget. Included in the proposal is the 5-year CIP for 2022 to 2026, and that 5-year plan sits at $259 million. This just gives you a snapshot of the breakdown by area for the total operating budget. The things I'll point out is the general fund takes up about 34% of that, and when you think about core services that the city provides, those core services are there. The emphasis on those capital projects and improvements, and then you can see the breakdown for the other areas of the city. On the capital project side, I highlighted the continued emphasis on drainage improvements as well as utility work, and you can see that those take up the bulk of the funding projects for next fiscal year. On the revenue side, so first is the property tax rate proposed is 0.3465. It's a 1 cent increase, and that's specifically for the funding of the phase 2 of the 2019 voter-approved bond program. There's a conservative approach that we use in terms of budgeting sales tax, and we work to stay consistent with financial management policy, and we continue to manage ongoing uncertainty. On the utility fund revenue side, we utilize the study that was completed in January to manage our rate increases. And then on the solid waste side, the city was successful in negotiating a minimum contract increase of 1.25%. As far as operating expenditures, these are some of the strategies that we'll use going into FY22. In terms of the first quarter decision making, it will be merit pool implementation, a portion of the one-time budget requests that are included, a portion of the rehab funding, and then as we've talked several times about the utilization of the ARPA funding. We continue to monitor both the upside potential that we see and seizing the opportunities in terms of being aggressive to make the city a better place, but we continue to manage that against some of the downside risk pressure that we see. And our priority is to achieve the first steps in returning to the Sugarland way. This is just a summary of some of the changes that have taken place since the budget was filed. First of all, when we received the certified tax rolls, there was a reduction in revenues for both general fund and debt service. We shifted some FY21 planned expenditures to FY22 based on timing. And then, again, because of the certified tax roll, the SLDC assignment from TERS 1 was reduced based on anticipated reduction in revenues. And then we also established a special revenue contract policing fund. Chief Robbins brought that to council previously, and in order to accurately account for both the revenues and expenditures for that, a separate fund has been set up. Just to highlight real quickly the process, in terms of the reviews that have taken place during the month of August, we took time with council to review the various funds that make up the city, both operations and capital program. And then the opportunities for public education and engagement, the public hearings on the PID assessment on August 17th, September 7th, the public hearing on the proposed budget, September 14th, the public hearing on the 2021 tax rate, and then in addition to that, public education opportunities, including information that we made available on the website, as well as, and some kudos to our communications group and Doug Adolph's group, a number of social media posts in order to try to continue to engage the community in the process. So staff's recommended action is approval of Ordinance 2249, the first and final reading for the FY22 operating budget, the 2022-2026 5-year capital improvement program, as well as the FY22 compensation plans. Any questions?
Council members, any questions? Can I get a motion? Got a motion by Kermali. Do I have a second? Second by Jacobson. You vote this time, please. And it passes 7-0. Thank you, Scott.
Thank you.
Item number C, first and final consideration. Consideration of an action on City of Sugarland Ordinance number 2244, an ordinance of the City of Sugarland, Texas, levying a property tax rate for the year 2021 and directing the tax assessor collector to assess, account for, and distribute the property taxes as herein levied. Jennifer Brown,
Thank you,
our Director
Mayor.
of Finance. Jennifer.
Good evening. All right, so property taxes, as you've heard throughout the budget process, is one of the main revenue sources for the city. It funds the general fund and the debt service fund. It is one of the few revenue streams that the city council has control over because you actually get to set the tax rate. You don't have any control over the values that are set. Those are set by the appraisal district. And so you get to set the tax rate, but then you're limited on how much you can set the tax rate at based on state law under the tax code. So The funding that we generate from the property taxes in the general fund goes to support general operations, which would be our public safety departments, public works, parks, et cetera. And within those functions, we also support our infrastructure maintenance, the road and drainage improvements, the maintenance, our park maintenance, and the ongoing operations of all of our facilities. That's all supported from within the property tax revenue. On the debt side, the property tax revenue is the support for general obligation bonds. Those are the bonds that are issued after we have approval by the voters, and the annual tax levy is used to repay the outstanding debt obligations once those bonds are issued. Over the last 25 years or so, actually it's 20 years, you can see that, it's actually closer to 30 years. I'm doing math in my head wrong. See, that's why I don't do math in my head. Since 1993, we have had a demonstrated commitment to decreasing our tax rate, and over time, that approach has changed. When we were a growing city in the early 90s and we were implementing the voter-approved sales tax for property tax reduction, you saw those tax rates drop. We started generating that additional sales tax, and it was real easy to decrease the tax rate when we were at 50 cents. We're now at 33 cents roughly, and over time we got down to 30 cents, and over time we've had to adjust our strategy because you can only continue to lower the tax rate for so long. And so in 2007, 2008 timeframe, we started using the Homestead Exemption as a strategy. We were previously at the 1% or $5,000 minimum to the homestead. In 2007, for the 2008 tax year, or fiscal year, the City Council voted to raise that to 5%. Today we're at 12%. So we've continued to raise that over time, and so we've begun to use that more as a tool to target the tax relief to our residents, because when you adopt a tax rate, it applies to every property, regardless of whether it's commercial, residential, personal property, leased autos, it's all at the same rate. So this homestead exemption is really the only strategy that you have where you can target that relief to the homeowners. So as we've discussed throughout this process, we have the budget that you just approved was built around a tax rate of 34.65 cents. We did shift some of the existing capacity prior to the 1 cent increase from debt to maintenance and operations. That is done within the 3.5% M&O growth that is allowed under the tax code. And then we have our 1 cent increase for the general obligation bonds that were approved by voters in 2019. And so that will fund what is highlighted in green within the 5-year CIP. We have almost 30 million, 29.96 million in projects funded in fiscal year 22 that are funded from GO bonds. This 1 cent tax increase is going to fund the impact of those projects. And those projects are listed here. This includes all of the GO bond projects, including the Austin Park and Chimney Stone drainage improvements, which we just recently closed our loan with the Texas Water Development Board. We got a $16.5 million zero interest 30-year loan for that. So it doesn't get any cheaper than that. Unless they're paying us to take their money, which I haven't been able to negotiate yet. And so that is, there's $13 million worth of other projects here that are being funded by that penny on the tax rate. And they're needed projects. They're drainage, they're public safety, they're street rehab. So they're all very important projects that were approved by the voters. This also is going to fund the budget priorities that Scott just talked about. I won't read all of these, but this was a summary of some of those priorities that were included within the fiscal year 22 operating budget. And so this pretty much just covers what Scott talked about in the last presentation. We did hold a public hearing on September 14th, and we published the required notice in the newspaper and ran it on Sugarland TV 16 and on the city's homepage. Has our proposed tax rate, the calculated no new revenue rate, and the voter approval rate that was calculated for us by the Fort Bend County Tax Office, tax appraiser, assessor collector, sorry. And the proposed tax rate is 2.2% over the no new revenue rate, and it is below the voter approval rate. And so with that, it will require a 60% affirmative vote of City Council to be adopted. The impact to the average residential tax bill is we're going to see about a $50 increase. We had a 1.47% increase in the average home value, and these are the values that we have to publish. This information goes on our webpage. The 1 cent increase in the tax rate is a 2.97% overall increase. Offset by the Homestead Exemption, you end up with a 4.48% increase to the tax bill, which is $50 a year or a little bit over $4 a month. And that's just the impact of the 1 cent increase, and then the increase in the value. So the recommendation this evening is approval of first and final reading of ordinance number 2244. It establishes the tax rate for 2021 totaling 34.65 cents. It will be allocated with the maintenance and operations rate of 0.208851 and a debt service rate of 0.137649, and then directs the tax assessor collector to assess, levy, and account for and distribute the property taxes as levy. There is a special motion that has to be made for this item, and I have that up here on the screen, and Mayor, I believe you have that with you as well. So this is the one action that we take every year that the state dictates the language that we have to use in the motion. And I can leave this up here. Our recommendation then is to adopt the tax rate as recommended, and I can be happy to answer any questions. I'll leave this up on the screen for you.
I'm going to go ahead and make the motion. I move that the property tax rate be increased by the adoption of a tax rate of 34.34650, which is effectively a 2.2% increase in the tax rate. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second by Lane. Any questions? You vote at this time, please. And it passes 7-0. Thank you, council. Item number 5D, consideration and action on ratification of an increase in property tax revenue included in the fiscal year 2022 budget. Jennifer.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. One last item that's budget related. So the local government code, section 102.007, because this year's budget and the property tax levy generates more revenue than we did in the preceding year, we have to hold one more vote, separate and apart from the property tax vote and the budget vote, to just reaffirm that you really meant to vote on what you just voted on in the last two items, to approve the budget and set the tax rate. And so we will put the results of the votes that you just took will get recorded on the final budget, the cover page that goes in the final budget that is codified with the ordinance. It will reflect the results of the vote, the property tax rates for the current and preceding year, and then the total amount of debt obligations. And then that will get posted on our website until at least a year from today. And so that information from last year is still on our website, and we also keep it up there longer than a year. Just we have an archive of all our budget information. On that cover page, there is a statement that says this budget will raise more revenue from property taxes than last year's budget by an amount of $1,186,435, which is a 2.13% increase from last year's budget. And the property tax revenue should be raised from new value added to the tax roll this year is $223,364. This is the same statement that was published in the notice of the public hearing on the proposed budget, so that statement's been out there. So with that, staff recommends that you vote one more time to ratify the tax revenues that are shown in the fiscal year 22 budget and the tax rate for 2021.
So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
Got a second by Lane. You vote this time, please. And it's a 7-0 vote. Thank you, council members. Item number 6, contracts and agreements. 6A, consideration of an action on authorization of a contract with Oaks, Inc. in the amount of $45,210 for life insurance and accidental death and dismemberment coverages, and with Symetra Life Insurance Company in the amount of $188,351 for disability insurance coverages for January the 2nd, 2022 through December the 31st of 2022. We have with us our Director of HR, Paula Kutchka. Paula.
Good evening, everyone. Just to kind of reiterate what we're going to be talking about, these are the group benefits that the city provides. We're going to be discussing life and disability with this action item. Oh, just click, sorry. There, got it. Sorry about that. So with our life and disability plans, for each employee, the city provides basic life insurance, accidental death and dismemberment coverage, and a long-term disability partial salary continuation coverage. On the flip side, employees have the option to elect voluntary coverages, supplemental life insurance for themselves and their dependents, and short-term disability partial salary continuation coverage. Our current contract, which is a 3-year contract, is ending this December. And so we conducted a comprehensive RFP for benefits earlier this year and included our life and disability plans. There we go. So traditionally, we bundle these two programs, life and disability, with the same carrier. However, after we were conducting the best and final analysis, we determined that it was more beneficial for the city and for employees to unbundle these programs and offer them with two different carriers. So we are recommending Oaks Incorporated for our life insurance, accidental death and dismemberment plans, and which is a new carrier for us, and Symetra Life Insurance Company, which is a carrier that we have used in the past for our short-term and long-term disability programs. Overall, we are going to see an increase on the city costs of approximately $93,000 due to plan enhancements that I'm going to go over with you. But we have accommodated for those in the overall planning of our benefits fund, and I will address that with you. So, went too far. How do I go back? Left arrow. There we go, sorry. I actually practiced this morning, so I'm sorry, I'm just a little nervous. So with our life AD&D plans, what we saw in the Oaks contract is that they are going to be matching our current plan coverages. So we will continue to offer one-time base salary with a minimum of $50,000 for our employees, and we are going to see about a 13% reduction in overall rates. They are bringing a new product line to our basic life plan, which is a line of duty death benefit for our public safety officers. That's something that we don't have right now. And for the supplemental plans, those are the plans that employees elect and pay for on their own. They are matching the age-banded coverages. However, they are allowing employees to purchase higher amounts if they so choose. And again, all rates that are provided in the contract are guaranteed for 3 years. So that's going to give our employees a sense of comfort and ability to plan going forward for the next few years, the life of this contract. Next, with Symetra on our disability plans, we are going to be increasing our long-term disability coverage. Right now, the max monthly benefit is set at 60% of the employee's monthly take-home pay to a max of $7,500. We're going to be able to increase that to about $12,000 per month. There is an increased cost in that premium, but again, as we talk about the funding for it, that has been taken into account in our budget planning process. Short-term disability benefits, right now, it's 70% of the employee's weekly take-home to a max of $1,000 a week. We're going to be able to increase that benefit to $1,500 a week. And that allows our employees, which about 60% of our workforce elects this benefit, to have that security and sense of comfort should they have a short-term disability situation that they deal with. And again, the rates are guaranteed for 3 years. When it comes to funding, again, the city pays for the basic life and LTD coverages for all our full-time employees. While we are seeing a reduction on the group life AD&D costs, we do see an increase on the LTD. Overall, when you balance out both contracts, we're seeing about a $93,000 increase on the city side. However, we are going to recognize some savings in other contracts that will offset that and still allow us to meet our financial goals for the benefits fund for 2022. And again, all coverages have a 3-year rate guarantee for planning purposes. Just to illustrate the Employee Benefits Fund, our goals going into 2022 were not only to manage our benefit expenses, but work to increase our reserve for claims for our self-funded medical plan, and at the end of the day, grow our ending fund balance so that our plan and benefits fund are more self-sufficient than they have been in the past based on these strategies. And of course, overall, all of the recommendations that we're bringing to you with these 2 contracts and with our next contract and all of our other benefit offerings are in compliance with this council's benefits burden policy, ensuring that our benefits burden is less than that of the private sector. And you can see from this slide, our benefits burden is going to be sitting at about 31.4%. So with that, we are recommending that council authorize the execution of all necessary documents to enter into year 1 of a 3-year renewable contract with Oaks in the amount of $45,210 for our life and accidental death and dismemberment coverages, and Symetra Life Insurance in the amount of $188,351 for our disability coverages for January 1, 2022 through December 31, 2022. Any questions?
Stuart?
Thank you, Mayor. Paula, on these supplemental benefits, do we go through agencies, or are we big enough to go direct?
With regards to?
Well, these premiums that we're paying for the life and the disability, do we go through an insurance agency, or do we go directly to the insurance company?
We go directly to the insurance companies through the RFP process, and then we have our independent consultant that helps us evaluate those. And we also ask them to benchmark them to what they're seeing, not only their book of business, for the Texas businesses and municipalities that they deal with, but also nationally. So we're making sure that we're getting the best bang for not only the city dollars, but for the employee products that we're offering where the employees are paying for those costs on their own.
Okay, a quick follow-up, please. Sure. Paul, I've never heard of Oaks Inc. What is that?
So that is very interesting. They are actually a company that specializes in public sector companies, public sector agencies. And we make sure that all of the products that we bring forward, those vendors have very strict guidelines as far as their fiduciary responsibilities and their ratings and things of that nature. But they are mostly public sector. You don't really hear about them a lot in the private sector, but we did see a number of public sector entities across Texas that use them.
Okay, thank you very much.
William?
Thank you, Mayor. Okay. First, I love that we're giving our staff the best, okay? And you mentioned about the increase of the $93,000, but you also mentioned it will be covered completely or wholly by other savings. Do you mind briefly talking about that so that we'll all understand?
Sure. So that you're going to hear a little bit more about some of those savings on the medical side, sure. But we were able to negotiate some things through the Cigna contract that left a little bit more money on the table that's allowing us to enhance some of our ancillary benefits. Okay. So for example, let me just flip real quick. We are seeing Cigna is reducing their fees about 5.8%, and those are the fixed fees associated with the third-party administrator contract for the medical plan, and that 5.8% is a little over $94,000. So that actually offsets it, and then we still had some other savings from the Cigna contract that we'll talk about.
Well, I knew you knew the answer. And the last thing, Mayor, yesterday, Houston, we lost one of our HPD officers. So when you mentioned that there's going to be some line of duty coverage, that's very exciting. Thank you for including that.
Well, thank you.
Michelle?
Just to follow up along with what Councilmember Ferguson said, what is the dollar amount for the line of benefit for public safety? Is there a fixed dollar amount?
Yeah, so it's 1 times their base annual salary up to $100,000.
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you for having that in there. Really appreciate it.
Anyone? Do I have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve, Mayor.
Got a motion by Kermally.
Second.
Second by Watley. Oh, I'm sorry, McCutcheon.
Is it the same thing? Is it?
All right, we got it. All right, vote now. And we got a 7-0 vote. Thank you, council members. Item 6B, consideration of an action on authorization of a contract with Cigna Healthcare in the amount of $2,329,863 for the period of January 1st, 2022 through December 31st, 2022 for the self-funded group medical plans, stop-loss coverage, fully insured group dental plans, and voluntary vision insurance coverage. Paula.
Yes, sir. Okay, let's see if we can make it go properly this time. Okay, so the products we're going to be talking about with this contract or this action item are the medical plans and all of its associated components, the dental plan, and the vision plan. There we go. So, like I said earlier, we are at the coming towards the end of year 5 of a 5-year multi-year contract with Cigna for these products. So we bundled all of our major and ancillary products, went out into the market for an RFP. We received about 30 proposals. Utilizing HUB, they did a very comprehensive analysis that followed up with a best and final analysis. We worked with the compensation committee. We went through the budget workshops with you, making sure we're complying with council's directive and with our financial responsibilities in mind. So we are recommending that we enter into a new multi-year contract with Cigna beginning with 2022 as year 1 of that contract for our medical plan components, including stop loss, our dental and vision program. So on the medical and pharmacy side, we have 2 medical plans, the Kelsey Care HMO and a high deductible health plan, which has an associated health savings account. So the contract would be for TPA services, that's third-party administrator. That would include buying their network, having them administer that network, processing and paying the claims from our self-funded claims account, providing a pharmacy benefit manager program, which includes everything that you think of whenever you need to get a prescription filled, what a formulary looks like, what the network looks like, all of those things, and ensuring that our employees have good, sound HSA account management to fall back on for those that are in the high deductible health plan. Our medical plan is self-funded for claims, including our pharmacy costs. So secondary to the medical plan, we want to make sure that we have appropriate stop-loss coverage. So what is stop-loss coverage? That's the extra insurance that we buy to make sure that our plan is protected on a specific level, meaning an individual plan member, or on the aggregate level. That means as a whole, we just have a really bad year. Our stop-loss coverage currently sits at and will move forward in '22 with a $175,000 deductible per individual member unless that member is lasered, which we do have one now, and that lasered member will continue on into next year. And our aggregate stop-loss sits at 120% of expected claims. That means if we have a very catastrophic year, we have that protection. So anything above that 120%, we stand to be reimbursed by the stop-loss carrier as just an added layer of protection for our plan and our fund. The dental and voluntary vision plan, those plans are fully insured. That means we pay a premium regardless of whether we use them or not. We have 2 dental plans that our employees participate in, a DHMO and a DPPO. We are not making any plan changes to the DHMO, and rates are staying the same. With the DPPO, we currently have a maximum annual amount that the plan will reimburse, $1,500 per year per member. We are able to increase that amount to $2,000 for 2022 at no additional cost in premiums. So that is an additional savings to our employees. And on the vision plan, we are not making any plan changes for 2022, but we are actually going to be giving our employees almost a 16% reduction in rates. And those rates for both the dental and vision plans are good for 3 years. So we've locked into those rates. Employee benefits fund funding. So through the budget process, so when we began this at the beginning of the year, we were anticipating a 4% increase needed for the benefits fund. We are able to manage all of these changes, including the contract that we just talked about, and every change that we're talking about now within the current budgeted amount. But in addition to that, we are able to grow our reserve for claims to 20% of our expected claims for next year. And we're able to increase the overall ending fund balance of the benefits fund. And that just goes to help that fund be more self-sufficient should we have a year where our anticipated or our aggregate claims go inch above that 100%, but maybe don't hit that 120% for reimbursement. So all of these recommendations have been talked through compensation committee. They've been shared with you during the budget workshop. They are in complete compliance with the city's benefits burden policy. And so just as a reminder, I'll share the slide on the benefits fund where you can see that right now, going into 21, we expected our ending fund balance to be less than 400,000, but because of a good claims year, we're going to hit a little over $1 million as anticipated, but we're actually going to be able to grow it even more should we have a year as expected in 22. And our reserve for claims, we're actually able to grow it a little bit more, so you can see that we are getting to that 20%, and if we have a good plan year, we may even grow it a little bit above that 20%. And again, that just helps the fund be more self-sufficient when a bad year does happen. And as I said with the previous contract, all of these recommendations are in compliance with the benefits burden policy, which puts our benefits burden at 31.4%. So with that, we are recommending that council authorize the execution of all necessary documents for the new multi-year contract with Cigna Healthcare in the amount of $2,329,863 for the period of January 1, 2022 through December 1, 2022 for the self-funded group medical plans, stop-loss coverage, fully insured dental plans, and voluntary vision insurance coverage.
Questions, council members?
Yes, sir. Paula, thank you. You did a great job. There's a lot of information that was in there that I appreciate hearing from. I was reading through here. Can you explain a little bit about the wellness health program that's in here? Because I think that's really important and it's beneficial to our city.
Right. So one of the things we recognized early on is that we need to make sure employees are well, that they're catching things early, that they're those little aches and pains are not left to linger and turn into something more serious. So with the help of our plan carrier, which it was with the previous carrier we started this, but Cigna has kind of picked up the ball when we went to them, and they've really been a great partner. They actually reimburse the city up to $100,000 for our wellness program each year. So this allows us to sponsor employees to participate in fun runs and other wellness activities, to bring lunch and learns, doctors to come in and talk to employees, for us to provide physical fitness classes, workout equipment, things of that nature, so that employees get up from their desk and are active during the day, that they have activities to do before and after work, and even on the weekends. And so because of the partnership with Cigna, and the city is not stagnant in that partnership, it is a joint partnership. So we actively budget our employee benefits fund dollars, and we partner that with the Cigna dollars to be able to provide these things to employees. We bring flu shots on site. We bring other things like that so that our employees have that access here. They're not taking time to go away and drive somewhere and then have to come back to work. They can get it done. They can get up from their desk and move around. So it's things like that that help the employees be well at work.
It's a great program. Thank you.
Anyone else, William?
Thank you, Mayor. This is quick, Paula. So I certainly want the best for the employees. My question is, and I know you've done this, have you surveyed the employees, and this is the plan, this is the group they like, this is the benefits they like, everybody's happy? I'm sure you've got 98% are happy, 2% unknown. I'm sure you have. I just want to know that we're not approving something that the staff's like, oh goodness, we could have done better, I wish we'd have spoke, whatever.
So we have not done a formal survey recently, but I will tell you that we do not get the level of complaints. We hardly ever get complaints regarding Cigna. And we are very active out with our employees. Our HR business partners go out to department staff meetings. We actively seek out that kind of information. We have a very active wellness committee, and they too are also out there asking employees, how are things going? How are things working out? Are you having any problems? And employees know that if they call Kelsey and they can't get an appointment in a day or two, they can call us and we'll get that for them. So they know, and Kelsey knows, and Cigna knows, we are going to fight for our employees, and they are not going to let our employees issues linger. We're going to resolve them. We have regular phone calls, not only with Cigna and Kelsey, but with all of our plan providers to make sure that they are doing the right thing for our employees on a regular basis. So yes, sir, we haven't done a formal survey, but we will be doing one soon because we're looking at some things that we may want to change up for our plans in future years. So we will be getting that and sharing that with you.
I had a feeling that you knew. Now, Mike, I have to say, Mike surveys everything always, so I figured you were going to just throw numbers, but thank you for that.
Yes, sir.
Anyone else? Do you have a motion to approve?
Motion.
Motion, bless you. Motion by Watley.
Sir.
Do I have a second?
Carmella.
Who made the motion?
I did.
Who made the second? Carmella's got the second. Got it. Okay. Speak up, Councilman. Speak up. Vote this time, please. It is 7-0.
Thank y'all.
Item number C, 6C, consideration of an action on acceptance of a donation in the amount of $11,690.18 from the Sugarland Legacy Foundation and authorization of a construction services contract in the amount of $122,222.22 with Jordan Enterprise LP for Sugarland Memorial Park Eagle Plaza Phase 2. We have with us Ms. Daphne McKinney, our Strategic Planning and Philanthropy Manager, and William Hasdick, our Assistant Director of Parks and Rec. Daphne.
Thank you, Mayor. I apologize for the mouthful. I will repeat it on my last slide.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'm pleased to be before you talking about the Eagle Plaza project, which we're ready to green light with your approval this evening. So just as a quick recap, I know you've all seen this beautiful eagle out at Sugarland Memorial Park. It's gazing on from the top of the hill to that beautiful tower. It has some light landscaping around it as well as a bit of electrical. Oh, Paula, it's not just you. I'm also technologically challenged. Here we go. Here's the site design, which has also been shared with you. The key feature of this site that I think is so striking is that amphitheater-style seating wall design, which really creates this beautiful gathering space. The project funding, this could not be made possible without a principal donation. This donation came from Colonel R.P.S. Bala and his wife Conwell, who gave $1 million to Houston area nonprofits simply to encourage community giving. So we are very lucky that the Sugarland Legacy Foundation was a recipient of $100,000 of that $1 million. So fantastic. We did have a bit of carryover from phase one from the sculpture itself. That was $1,864. And the design that I just showed you previously is $14,300. So going into this project, we had a balance of $87,564. I'm going to turn over to William. He's going to talk to you about the bids.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. I did want to recognize that Jordan Enterprises is here with us this evening. We have Maddie and Daryl, Project Manager and Vice President. So thank you, Jordan, for coming. We did finalize design and just before July with White Oak Studios. And in July, we went out to bid, and we received 4 bids. 1 bid from Stone Castle was non-responsive due to not including the required financials. So the lowest responsive bidder is Jordan Enterprises, without alternates of $122,222, and with alternates $147,777. The alternates are some decorative benches, some additional tree planting, irrigation for those trees, and then a concrete seating wall. Like Daphne mentioned, our budget was $87,564 after we paid White Oak Studios for the design. Without alternates, Jordan's bid is $122,222. Contingency built in of $7,000 put us over budget at $41,658. Our solution, $41,690, with some additional donations of $11,690 that we're presenting tonight. Some Parks Fiscal Year 21 operational funds of $10,000, and then the approval of Sugarland 4B contributions of $20,000 to make up the solution.
So before I go into just listing the donations, I do want to acknowledge just this fantastic partnership that I saw happening before our eyes. So SL4B partnered with us, Parks found some money, the Legacy Foundation found some money, and we just all came together to make this project happen. So super pleased to be here before you. The donations that make up that $11,690, $10,000 of it came from the Amy and Gary Becker Foundation. Gary Becker, as we all know and love, he's a Sugarland Legacy Foundation board member and a fantastic philanthropic supporter of our community. Almost $1,000 came from another Legacy Foundation board member, Vice President John Nall. And almost $700 came from your very own executive team members, just to make this project whole. So super excited that we all came together to make this project happen. Next steps are your action this evening, both accepting the donation and authorizing the construction contract. The construction itself is estimated to complete around the spring of 2022. And then those alternates that you saw in a previous slide are anticipated to be funded in a future phase. And we're not setting that aside. We're not closing that book. We are actively out there working on getting that additional funding. The Legacy Foundation has been a great partner in this project, and I do anticipate hopefully not making any promises that we can get this whole project done hopefully in 2022. No promises though. So with that, and I'm going to repeat your mouthful, Mayor, as best I can, staff recommends the City Council acceptance of a donation from the Sugarland Legacy Foundation in the amount of $11,690.18. Of note, this item does not require a budget amendment, as usually our donations do, because that funding was included in your amendment to projections earlier this evening that Scott presented. So that amount was already included in that amendment.
So staff also recommends the authorization and execution of a construction services contract with Jordan Enterprise LP in the amount of $122,222.22. All actions for the Eagle Plaza Phase 2 project at Sugarland Memorial Park. With that, happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, Stephanie. Question, Carol?
I absolutely love the beautiful Memorial Eagle, and I'm just so grateful to the Colonel for his $100,000 donation and for the donations that came in through the Legacy Foundation and how everybody came together to make this possible. So I would like to make the motion to approve.
Got a motion by McCutcheon. Any other comments? Good. Second by Wiley. Your votes this time, please. And it passes 7-0. Thank you, Daphne. Thank you, William.
Thank you.
Item number 7, workshop. 7A, review of and discussion on establishing the Trail Naming Council Facilities Task Force. Near and dear to my heart. We have Ms. Cindy Dees, our Director of Public and Government Affairs, and Rob Valenzuela, our Executive Director of Public and Neighborhood Services. Rob, you're first up.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. Before you tonight is the workshop to discuss the Trail Council Task Force for naming trails. If you, just a brief background, it's governed by 2 different council policies. The first one is naming of city facilities and sub-facilities. That is a policy that kind of labels which facilities within the city we can name. And for your reference, those are buildings and those types of things, but it also includes trails. The second policy, city council policy, is the creation and operation of city council committees and task forces. So upon council concurrence, the mayor will select up to 3 volunteer members of the city council to serve on the trail naming task force. In that particular policy as well, we talk about defining the scope or purpose for the committee. We talk about a timeline, and then we talk about staff liaisons. So we're going to go through a lot of those points with you today or this evening as we go through the PowerPoint. Well, there we go. And I just fast forwarded through every single slide. All right, there we go. So when we talk about kind of what are some of those facilities, if you will, the city has 5 trails that can be considered as part of the scope for the trail naming task force. They're very creative names. They're Ditch 822 trails. There's the First Colony Trail, there's a Ditch H Trail, there's a Ganaway Lake Trail, and the New Territory Trail. We'll step you through kind of geographically where they lie, if you will, and within which districts they lie. District 1, you have 2 trails and 1 trail portion, so you're looking at the Ganaway Lake Trails and the 822 Trails as well as part of Ditch H. In District 2, you have the New Territory Trail as well as portion of the Ditch H Trail. In District 3, you have part of the First Colony Trail. As you go through there. In District 4, you have part of the Ditch H Trail and First Colony Trail as well. So with that, I will turn it over to Cindy, and she'll take you through the purpose and scope for the committee.
Okay. See if I can get this. I think we skipped. Oh, you had already lined me up. Thank you, Rob. So if you recall, we actually had some kind of informal council ideas floating around about this task force being named at the Ditch H public meeting, and there was some impromptu conversation, and so that was actually one of the reasons that prompted us to come forward tonight, and that was some conversation from Councilmember McCutcheon, Councilmember Watley, so thank you for that discussion, because it led to us being here today. So as Rob was mentioning, we have the council policy to establish committees and task forces, and the purpose of those task forces and committees is to review an issue in greater detail than is possible in a regular meeting, and then for that task force to come back and share the good news with the rest of the city council about where they landed on their recommendation.
So we would put these council members to work. They would be working on ensuring that, we have the right 5 trails, we want to name them. We would follow the council policy to determine how we're going to be naming them. Are we going to go out to the public? Are we just going to solicit ideas from internal to the organization? What is that process going to look like? Support staff's efforts to follow the task force's guidance for soliciting potential names. What that really means is you're going to help us. If you want us to go out to the public and get solicitation for names, you're going to be right there with us trying to get that support potentially and soliciting those names, or you may actually be tasked with coming up for an idea for a name. We also would ask you to review and consider name submissions that meet the criteria and guidelines outlined in the council policy. That may honestly be the hardest part, is really just figuring out which of the names make sense and match the different trails, and are they, appropriate names and those types of things. And then last, you'll come back to your peers and you'll share the names that you came up with, or the public came up with, and you'll figure out what you want to name the trails. So the timeline and the commitment. As you know, council committees and task forces, that means we want your time and your efforts. And so we're looking at this potential timeline. We envision when we do meet with the task force that it'll be about 60 to 90 minutes per meeting. We originally envisioned bi-weekly meetings. Of course, things change, so we only need to meet once a month, but we are envisioning bi-weekly right now. So we would kick off with, we're letting you know tonight that we'd like to do this, and soon thereafter we would notify the council of who the members were going to be of the task force. We'd kick off with meetings right away in mid-October, and we'd talk about scope, the schedule, how we're going to go ahead and name the trails, and then later in October, we would actually determine the process that we were going to follow to name the trails. The week of November 9th, so beginning of November, we'll review the naming process. We envision having to go to the Parks Board because these are trails that fall within some of the purview of the Parks Board and their advice. And then mid-November to early December, we would execute the naming plan, and that means that we would actually follow whatever the task force came up with, if that's going to the public, et cetera. We would go ahead and execute that at that time, and then continue our work with the task force to determine what the recommendation would be. Early December, we come back to the full council finally with the proposed names. And then by the end of the year is the goal. We would have full council approval of all those trail names. So it's a pretty quick process when you think about it from now to the end of the year. It would be pretty fast-paced. So next steps and what we kind of need from you tonight is, do you want to establish a task force, a council task force to do this? We typically have up to 3 members on those. And we want some preliminary feedback about the trails, the 5 trails that Rob mentioned. Do those sound like trails that you would like to name? So that is what we're looking for from you tonight. So with that, we're going to ask for any questions or feedback that you have.
I'm going to stick my neck out and go ahead and assume that since it's been introduced by a couple of council members, is what I've been told anyway. That was a rumor on the street. I want to assure everybody that I do not want to be part of this. I have already been part of one once before, and it was a train wreck. And we finally got the park named. It was the Crown Festival site, but it was a tough process. Anyway, I'm going to assume that y'all want to do this.
Well, so we thought Ditch H deserved a better name. That's all.
As an engineer, I think Ditch H is a very appropriate name.
Well, as an engineer, I thought we could be more creative with Ditch H, okay?
Stuart?
Mayor, as at least one of these trails is most likely to be named after me, I'd like to withdraw my name for consideration for the task force. Thank you.
Well, let me simplify it for you. I'm looking for 3 names, no more than 3.
Okay, I volunteer.
Okay, so I've got Carol. I think you were one of the ones.
I was one of the ones who pounced on Cindy, yes.
Suzanne, I believe you were another one.
She was the other one who pounced on Cindy, yes.
Well, there we go. So we got 2. Can I get a third? We got Nishad. Look at him. Look at that. All right, I expect y'all to make sure that Nishad behaves himself and gets some appropriate names. Everybody good with that? It's a pretty easy process. You got 3 names.
Sounds good.
Thank you.
Cindy, you okay with my name?
Yes.
Not Stuart Jacobson either.
Jacobson Trail has good,
Yeah.
Horsey, bunny, doggy.
I can't wait to see what this group comes up with.
Are you taking my blood pressure?
All right, well, we're now on to item number 8, the city council member reports. Jennifer, let's start with you.
I had the pleasure of hosting the Imperial Sugarland Lions Club at the Skeeters game, and they were so appreciative that they had an opportunity to hang out with each other and watch the game, because they're always working really hard to provide services to the community.
William.
I had a great time yesterday with a couple of our council members out at Sweetwater, doing a great thing, and I'm going to let Nishad talk about that, but I do want to say one thing to the parents that have all left. Hopefully they're still watching us later with the kids from the Taekwondo group. They have done a fabulous job with their kids in our community, and I just want them to know how much I appreciate how much time they put into their children. Just watching them tonight was a great joy.
Thank you, William. Sean.
William, the Fit and Kick Taekwondo is in District 2. That's why they do such a good job. That's the reason. But no, kudos to the Taekwondo group. But yes, yesterday, William, along with our fearless city manager, played golf.
He was fearless if he played golf.
Yeah.
Injury-free.
Supposedly. He came to work today, so that's a good sign. That's a good sign. But it was for the Forest Foundation. Childhood Cancer Awareness Month is September. You all know that I sit on the board there as well. But the foundation raised over $600,000 just with one golf tournament in the inaugural year that they did. So, Mayor, I appreciate you coming out as well yesterday during lunch. Golfers were coming in late, but 60 teams, 240 players, people from Canada, Mexico, and all over the U.S. were in our city, spending their tax dollars right here in Sugarland Town Center the way we love it, and filling up our restaurants. In fact, they're at Perry's right now, some of them are. So good showing. The other thing I did with the help of Council Member William is there was a lot of folks that did not have electricity after Hurricane Nicholas came through our area with a little wind and rain. And I made a phone call to William. I had some people that needed some generators, and he said, "I'll meet you there. Give me the address, and I'll meet you there." And thank you, William, for always being out there for our citizens. And we gave out 4 generators and hooked them up, and he even had gallons of gasoline as well. But that's what we did this week. That's it, Mayor.
Congratulations, Suzanne.
Well, I think you all know what I'm going to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
I want to thank everybody on this council, and Mayor, you too, especially because you gave a great proclamation, but our whole city came together to support our firefighters. And thank you, Chief. You did a great job. I'm so proud of you, and I'm so proud of our firefighters. We raised over $100,000 for our firefighters. So thank you so much for our city for coming together. I'm so proud of all of you. The other thing that I did with Nishad, we welcomed Dr. Christy Whitbeck as our new superintendent of our Fort Bend schools. So that was a great afternoon, evening, and we're here to support her. I know we all are. So thank you.
Stuart.
Thank you, Mayor. I was very proud to watch my fellow council member, Suzanne Watley, in action, and my fire chief, Doug Boker, in action. And that made me very proud to be a Sugarlander and a council member. The other thing was that until just a few minutes ago when I had a trail named after me, the best thing that happened to me today was I attended the Houston-Galveston Area Council monthly board meeting. Thank you.
Carol.
Yes, well, most of council attended the unveiling of a very meaningful mental health mural at Brazos River Park, And also on display were some hand-decorated wooden boxes that are going to contain mental health resources and be placed in, high foot traffic areas in our city. And I've got a lot of really positive feedback about that. And then afterwards, I stopped by the grand opening of the city's outdoor ping pong table at Memorial Park, which is across from the dog park, and also hosted the Clemens Athletic Booster Club at Constellation Field. They were very grateful for the opportunity, and even after the fireworks, they were all still there having a great time. And then also, Councilmember Watley and I attended the Fort Bend Infrastructure Conference. And then I'd also like to congratulate Councilmember Watley and the fire department, all involved, for a highly successful inaugural firefighters ball, and just thanks again to our firefighters and EMS for all you do to serve our citizens.
I'd like to recognize the Skeeters, who are in first place by about 7 games. Last game is in October. I have word on the street is they're going to hang in there and they'll be in first place. Second thing I'd like to mention is Thursday night, we will open the Fort Bend County Fair. Fort Bend Mayor and Council Members Association will be part of that. It is, they didn't have the fair last year. That's a really big deal for the FFA, for the kids, and for the county. So I'd like to ask that anybody that can, take your family out. It'll be a good time. Wear a mask, don't wear a mask. I don't think it makes any difference, but it's a great place for kids to learn about animals and responsibility. Mike, item number B, City Manager Report.
Thank you, Mayor. Wanted to thank our staff for the response to Hurricane Nicholas. Luckily, it was not a big event for us, but we did have staff working 24/7. We've been chipping a lot of tree limbs out there, and the entire city participated and came up with some innovative approaches. So I definitely want to thank them. Want to thank the council and staff for all the work that went into approval of the budget. This is my second budget, and not one of them have gone smooth. And I'm hoping COVID goes away, and the third one will be the charm. Also, I attended the firefighters ball. That was a great event. One of the best functions I've ever been to. So obviously,
dog.
So I wanted to
yes, how's
thank Charlie. Somehow I ended up with a dog, and Charlie's doing great. Except she woke me up at 2:30 in the morning, wanting to go outside, Mayor. But that was
better than Jessica waking you up at 2:30 in the morning.
Well, I tried to not wake up Jessica. That would have been bad. But wanted to thank everybody involved in that. Also, was able to participate in the Ferris Foundation nonprofit tournament. And Shad, thank you for your efforts on that. And William got to experience my golf game, Mayor, and I'll tell you that William and all of the properties along the golf course and the vehicles within a half mile were in awe of my game. So that's it. Thank you.
Do we have a motion to adjourn? You got it by Carol. We're adjourned at 7:17 p.m. Thank you, council members.